In the 14 years of growing tomatoes here, I've always had at least a few knots, although not as bad as they used to be. This time I didn't spot a single knot. None. No knots. I never thought I'd be able to say that. What did I do differently? How's it growing? We're not nematodes, my garden nemesis. So what made the difference this time? Well, there was one major thing I did differently, but I wanted the soil tested so that I could see if a predatory nematode was keeping the bad guys in check or something else. So I sent this soil sample to a soil food web consultant, Alan Skinner, in Jacksonville. And we'll hear from him shortly. If you prefer to see a shorter, more condensed version of this, you should see a link up here or a link in the description. Also, I'll have more of my commentary on that as well. But this is my full, minimally edited version of Alan Skinner's soil assessment for those who like to geek out on soil biology, like me. And then I'll give my thoughts on what made the difference. Anyone that's certified through Dr. Lingham's Soil Food Web, I have a lot of respect for.
Well, I got to tell you, David, I've now been doing this really since 2010, but with Dr. Ingham since 2016. The amazing thing is that everything that she teaches it works. I mean, she's right. The soil looks good in general, so I think that we've got a great start to work with this soil. I was also happy to see a lot of nematodes in your sample, which is good.
What kind of nematode was that?
This looks like, I'm guessing this is probably like a what's known as an omnivore, which means or switcher. So this one.
Later, Alan got back to me about this one. He wanted me to clarify that while he still stands by its classification as an omnivore, it's more accurately described as a bacterial omnivore. This sets it apart from a switcher, which is a separate nematode classification. When you say beneficial nematode, you mean a predator or?
Beneficial nematode are ones that cycle nutrients to the benefit of plants. What's interesting about Elaine Ingham's BioComplete standards is that, believe it or not, if you see one beneficial nematode on your slide, your cover slip, that actually meets the BioComplete standard. So again, if you're just lucky enough to see one, that will be all you need. And they cycle nutrients. There are 5 different kinds of nematodes. One is the root feeder, of course, which is the bad guy. One of 5 is a bad guy. The other ones that are beneficial are bacterial feeders. Their excrement is fertilizer. It's basically they're excreting nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and all the other good nutrients in the soil. Then there are fungal feeders. They would go up and inject into a fungal strand and then suck the juice out of it, and then of course poop out other good things like calcium and potassium. Then there's that's an omnivore, which kind of can do both, where they can do both fungal and bacterial. And then lastly, the predatory nematodes, which are kind of like the great white shark of the soil world, and they are able to actually eat other nematodes. In my career, I've probably done 1,500 microscope assessments, and I've maybe seen one predatory nematode. I mean, it's just they're just rare. So, David, tell me about your soil. Like, describe your soil to it. I mean, do you amend it with wood chips? Do you have
Yes, I've been mulching it with wood chips. My beds are not only raised beds, but it's the tabletop method, so it's up off the ground. A couple years ago, I stopped solarizing my beds like IFAS told me to do when I went to the extension office and when I was trying to find out what to do about these root feeding nematodes. They gave me a flyer about solarizing the beds. And so for 9 years, every summer, I was very dedicated about solarizing the beds all summer long. The soil it lost its water holding capability. It lost its soil structure. I might as well have been trying to grow food in the sand because it was just awful, and it was much more susceptible to pests and disease. I thought I was doing okay because I was replenishing it with fresh compost, but it just wasn't enough. Then that's when 2 years ago I switched to cover cropping. So I guarantee you, if you looked at my soil a couple years ago, I would have been hearing a whole different thing from you. I mean, just the water holding capability, it was extremely hydrophobic. Because there was no soil structure in there.
Soil structure. Yeah. Like when you see these little brown clumps, like that right here, these are what are called microaggregates, and basically they're the waste product from the composting process, where you have a lot of that brown stuff is humic acid, which is like the perfect fertilizer. But humic acid is basically composted material that the microbes have been working on, and of course it creates this beautiful, complex molecule that's got every element in it, and the plants will use that for food. But these microaggregates are primarily formed by bacteria, and then what will happen is a fungi strand will also feed on this humic acid, because that's kind of a food source of the fungi, and they'll start connecting these microaggregates and create what are called macroaggregates. And this, when you have enough of this micro and macroaggregate activity going on, you're going to start to have what's called crumb soil texture, and that's what you want, because that's basically when the reason it's called a crumb texture is because when you look at it, it's very porous, which means that it's not hydrophobic. It's when it rains, it's going to soak up moisture and hold on to moisture instead of it running off. And so that's why it's so important to have soil structure, because your soil is more likely to hold on to water, and it'll be like a sponge, and it'll hold on to it and release the water as the plant needs it. When you have soil that has no soil structure, it's very likely that it's gonna saturate the soil pretty quickly. And as soon as it saturates, it's gonna start running off, and then you're gonna have topsoil erosion, things like that. So I would say in that department you're doing really well, because you can see you clearly got good microaggregates and fungi. So the soil looks good in general. So I think that we've got a great start to work with this soil. So that's good. When I look at your sample, one thing that you can point out, you see, if I can see these little dots, like it's kind of hard to, you see that little dot? There's the tip of my finger. There's another one right there. Let me see if I can get a little more focused.
Yeah, I see those.
Yeah. And sometimes they'll vibrate. Like here's another one right there. Now that's a bacteria, probably a cocci, which is a spherical bacteria. And the one thing about your sample is that normally I see a lot more. And again, I haven't done my counts yet, but I would say that you're in the low bacterial range, which, bacteria, of course, you don't need a lot of bacteria to cycle, to get good nutrients in your soil. However, it does help to have a little more. And there's some, what you can do there is you can maybe add some bacterial food to your beds. And one that Dr. Ingham has said to use recently is actually honey. Usually she said to use molasses, because molasses is a very complex sugar molecule with a lot of other beneficials. But she says that, she'd rather see, honey is actually a good one too. It's got some complex sugars, but it's easy for bacteria to eat. And and of course it's very natural. You probably can get some local honey in your area that's organic, but doesn't have any worry about pesticides or something like that. Okay. So that might help grow your bacterial numbers. And of course, if you grow your bacterial numbers, you're also going to grow your protozoa too, because protozoa like to eat bacteria. And now the one thing that I don't see a lot of in your sample, though, David, is I don't see a lot of, speaking of protozoa, I don't see a lot of protozoa, and we'll come across one in a little bit.
I'm wondering, because we just came from, as you probably know, here in South Florida, we just came out of a really bad drought. Our springs are typically dry, but it was especially dry this year.
Protozoa are extremely sensitive to dry conditions. And so what they typically do is when they're under stress, mostly drought stress, they will go into a cyst phase. And if I see a cyst in my slide, I'll show it to you. And then, when it gets moist again, they'll come alive again. But if you fail to keep your soil or your compost moist, they will start to disappear. But I did want to point out this is a beneficial fungal strand. And the way that you determine you've got beneficial fungi is you'll notice that this has got a color. It's kind of a brownish color. So as opposed to being clear is not so good. A lot of the bad fungi are clear, but this has got color. That's number one. That's another first of all, first criteria for making it a beneficial. Also, see how it's a constant diameter? It's kind of like a hose or a snake or a pipe, and it's got a constant diameter. And lastly, you can see some septa here. You can see a little septa there, like a bamboo septa. There's another one right there. These are all the color, constant diameter, and septa are all signs of a good, fungal-based, beneficial soil. Now, we're lucky to see this. When you scan around, I don't see much of it. So again, right now, David, if I had to just do a kind of a gut check, I would say you're low on bacteria and low on fungi, but it's there. The good news is that it's there. And so when you have something that's already there, now here's another one this is another beneficial. So that's a good sign. So see, we found another one. That's good because they're there. But again, what we can do is maybe recommend there are a class of foods that feed not only the plants, but also feed the microbes, such as a good food for the microbes, of course, is things like honey. Some people use molasses. Another good bacterial food, which also is a fungal food, is fish hydrolysate. Now, this is not fish emulsion, but it's like a fish hydrolysate, and it's basically just ground up fish in water, and then they put a phosphoric acid stabilizer in there so the container doesn't blow up when they ship it to you from all the just microbial activity.
I've got a big jug of that.
Yeah, and then you dilute it in water, and you're going to spray it. And of course, that's also an outstanding fertilizer for your plant, and a lot of fatty acids that plants love. They're easy for plants to digest, and so that's another really good fungal, plant food that's also a microbial food.
I guess kelp meal is that good also?
Yeah, kelp. And that was one of the other things I was going to say is kelp. Kelp meal is also really good, and I found this is my personal experience is that kelp is a fungal food. So again, to kind of recap, you want to grow your bacteria and your fungi. Honey is of the bacterial food. Fish hydrolysate is kind of does both. It does both bacteria and fungi, and then I find that kelp does mostly fungi. So it's funny how I could have looked at this microscope and almost explained to you, probably what was going on in your soil, but you've got, in terms of being like maybe under stress because of the lack of protozoa, I probably could have even deduced that even before you even told me. That's the kind of beauty of the microscope. You can learn so much from what you see. Like, here's another great example of a cyst. Now, see this double wall?
Yeah.
And not sure what kind. It could be a ciliate, by the way. It's just another type of protozoa. This is indicative of dry soil because you have protozoa that are going into a dormant phase. The best way to get protozoa into a garden bed is to find compost that has protozoa in it. Now, that's the only way you really know that is if you can do some kind of microscope assessment or you trust the source of your compost. There's a lot of bad compost out there that doesn't have any kind of biology in it. But again, here's another really good piece of fungal strand right here. And again, this is the larger the diameter, the better. And that's actually a pretty healthy diameter as fungi goes. But see the septa, see the color, see the constant diameter. So and there's some really good, if you go on YouTube and look up Dr. David Johnson, he was with Chico State, California for a while. He's got some great videos on things that are on what the importance of fungi in soil as being kind of the main determinant of food, yields and quality. And when you are able to get your fungal numbers up, you're able to do some, you grow some amazing crops. And the thing is that fungi is one of the first things that gets annihilated in any kind of mechanical disturbance and any chemical disturbance. So 90% of our man-made fields have no fungi in it because we've destroyed that environment. So the whole point is you want to, when you're running your garden or your farm, you basically want to get into a no-till environment. In a raised bed, you can kind of do minimal tilling because you've already got good soil in there, and all you have to do is maybe every growing season you just amend it with some good compost. Luckily, hand weeding is very easy. You don't have to spray any herbicides or anything. So you're in a good spot where you can actually grow things and get your fungal numbers up. So you're going to get, and once you get the fungal numbers up, then of course you keep feeding them. They'll really give you some great results with your crops. Now the reason I'm showing this slide right now is that clear strand you see there is that could be like a fungal disease. Now again, what we said about beneficial was large diameter, constant diameter, septa, and a color. Notice this is thin diameter, kind of lumpy. It's I wouldn't call it a constant diameter. It's kind of lumpy, and it's also clear. So this could be a disease causing fungi. Now, not to panic, because the good guys and bad guys live side by side in soil, but it's just a matter of which one dominates. If there's many more good guys than bad guys, then the bad guys can't really compete very well with the good guys.
Right.
So that's but still, what you don't want to see is more bad guys than good guys. Then you got problems. Now, so I really haven't seen so far. If I find a protozoa, I'm going to show them to you. But so far, I haven't found one. And the thing about it is, the two things that cycle nutrients are going to be. Let's see if this might be a flagellate of some kind. I've got to see if this is. If you see any movement around here, there's something moving right in the middle. That could be a bacteria, but it might be a flagellate.
Right.
Flagellates are typically beneficial protozoa. And again, they're going to eat bacteria, and their excretion is fertilizer. So and there's also a little fungal strand right there. So again, like I say, I did see some protozoa in a sample the other day, but it wasn't very much. And I know we'll find one. I guess it's definitely got to be in here, but I don't see. There's not enough to be significant. That's the concern. And the question is the best way to get protozoa into a garden bed is to find compost that has protozoa in it. Now that's the only way you really know that is to fungal strand. Very nice right there. The only way you really know that is if you could do some kind of microscope assessment, or you trust the source of your compost. There's a lot of bad compost out there that doesn't have any kind of biology in it.
Yeah.
So that's, again, this now when I look up here, see a lot of these clear strands. Now some of these might kind of get over. It's possible it could be what's called an actinobacteria, but I think this is actually some kind of pathogenic fungi, because I do see it's clear, and it kind of probably meets more of the criteria of a pathogenic fungi. So this could be causing problems with your tomatoes too, like Fusarium or some of the Rhizoctonia, things like that. And that's what the beauty of the microscope is, you can actually see this stuff. So bear with me, I'm going to keep trying to look around here to see if I see stuff. Again, a little frustrating that I haven't found a good example of a protozoa. So again, what's interesting, David, is you've actually got the foundational creatures. You got the bacteria and fungi, and you have nematodes too. The nematodes are also cycling nutrients, which is good because they're going to eat a lot of bacteria, eat fungi, eat other nematodes, and then poop out some fertilizer. But it does look like you need some protozoa in your bed for sure. Again, another great fungal strand right there. So again, this is really good. Fungi is one of the hardest things to get into soil.
I've also been doing some chop and drop. Of course, when I terminate the cover crops, that's a lot of chop and drop. Then there's Down to Earth has this BioLive that I haven't added anything to the beds since last November, but it's got different strains of mycorrhizal fungi and humic acid. It's derived from fishbone meal, fish meal, alfalfa meal, crab meal, shrimp meal, langbeinite, and kelp meal. So I'm going to be adding this. I came across a study that said that supposedly was effective at keeping root feeding the nematodes under control is using urine with molasses. So I applied that like a couple of times months ago. I definitely want to do another treatment of molasses and do that more fish emulsion that you were talking about that I have.
Fish hydrolysis. Well, again,
yeah, that's what I meant.
And the thing is that fish emulsion, so fish hydrolysate as opposed to fish emulsion, the reason there's a difference is that fish emulsion is basically fish hydrolysate has been processed to make it more concentrated with a higher nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium rating. But in the process of them processing it, you lose a lot of that good microbial food because the microbes want those good fresh fatty acids that are part of the fish guts and the brains and all throughout the fish, and that's what they feed on. So once that stuff gets boiled off by making fish emulsion, then they don't have nearly as much food. So I just wanted to clarify that to people. Now, what you're looking at right here, this is a protozoan cyst. And the reason you know that is because it typically has a donut shape. It's got kind of like a thicker outer wall. I can't say what kind of protozoa this is, but this is a protozoa that was under stress that went into a dormant phase. And so once this soil starts to get more favorable, like in moisture content, things like that, then it'll probably wake up and start being active again.
Right.
So that's probably the most important. That moisture. Whenever you see it, like it's been dry for a while, like it is right now, and then it rains, and then plants just green up. Well, that's really probably the protozoa just waking up and just cycling nutrients.
Okay.
And so that's the beauty of so that's why rain is important for a lot of reasons, but that's obviously one of the big reasons. I'm gonna keep looking here for some other things. And like right here, this might be this little dot right here, little brown thing right there in the middle, right, kind of like right there is very likely a fungal spore. So that under the right circumstances, that will germinate and then become another good fungi. And what's interesting about getting to your point earlier, David, about this drought condition, it's funny how I could have looked at this microscope assessment and almost explained to you, probably what was going on in your soil, but you've got, in terms of being like maybe under stress because of the lack of protozoa, I probably could have even deduced that even before you even told me. That's the kind of beauty of the microscope. You can learn so much from what you see. Here's a really good example. Another great example of a cyst. Now, see this double wall?
Yeah.
And not sure what kind. It could be a ciliate, by the way. It's just another type of protozoa. But that's clearly you've got that. This is indicative of dry soil because you have protozoa that are going into a dormant phase. Look at what we found from the nematode extraction, and this is a root feeder. Okay, and the way is you have this little round thing right there. This is the spear right there, and of course this is the mouth, and so it would butt up to a root, and that little round thing is like a muscle, and it's like a stiletto. In other words, it just a spear, and that muscle just injects that spear into the plant, and of course sucks the juice out. The thing is that by the nematode root feeding nematode doing this, what happens is it creates a scar or a sore on the plant root, especially if this is happening a lot. And then if you've got like plants have a lot of ability to resist diseases, but it kind of relies on having, it's like us with healthy skin. I mean, gosh, our skin protects us from so many diseases. So no different with a plant too. They've got the dermis of the root, the rhizosphere, protecting the plant. But as soon as that gets compromised, then it's vulnerable to other diseases that will come in and then attack the plant. So root feeders can cause some problems by other diseases being involved. So anyway, the thing about it is that your soil's looking good, and I think that you've got some great, you've also got still have the bad guys, and again, the way you're going to have to be able to address this root feeding issue is just to continue to try your best to, have more competition for the bad guys. So that's and maybe you get lucky with a predatory nematode that will arrive on the scene and then also kind of maybe eat them. And that's kind of what I've been hoping to see maybe we get lucky. Is that no plant debris? Might get lucky and see a predatory nematode, because that way we might be able to know that, yes, that they really are at risk. The root feeders of getting eaten. I think this might be one here. Let's see. Nope, plant material.
Repeat what you told me on the phone about how it's very rare to find these predatory nematodes.
They're kind of like an apex predator, and of course there's not, they're kind of like great white sharks in the sense that you don't see a lot of great white sharks around very much. You might see other types of sharks, but not so much the great white shark. So, they typically, you'll see those maybe in more of an old growth forest where you've got a large diversity of different types of nematodes. But again, they're kind of an apex predator, and there's not, I guess you don't need as many of those around.
Right.
Anyway, that's I scanned this slide, and I didn't really see any more nematodes, but we did see that root feeder. So what that does tell you, David, is you still got, they're out there, and they could really be hurting your tomato plants. Summertime's a brutal time to grow any kind of crop. So it's a great time to grow cover crops. And of course, the cover crops will reduce the temperature of your soil and then keep the moisture in a little bit better. So that's another great positive. And also the cover crops, there's a term called exudates, and exudates, plants need microbes to survive. And so they have to entice them into the root zone. And so the way they do that is they actually excrete things are called exudates that are full of sugars and carbohydrates and amino acids. And the microbes just lap that up. And then the plant says, okay, now that I fed you, you got to feed me, and go out to the soil and with your acids and enzymes, go dissolve some phosphorus, potassium, and some calcium, because I'm deficient in that. And then the microbes will do that, and they get all these great nutrients in their cell wall. And then things like protozoa and nematodes come along, and they eat the the bacteria or fungi, and then they poop out this calcium, phosphorus, and whatever trace elements the plant needs. And that's how plants grow with biology. So it works really well. And in my business, Soil Life Organics, I mean, I've been doing this now for a while, and I can't tell you how many success stories I've had with clients that are just so blown away with how well things grow. Once you start restoring the biology of the soil, which is grossly deficient from all of our practices, primarily, a lot of our, like in your lawn and your landscaping, that is kind of a perennial system where you kind of leave the soil alone. But then what happens is we spray a lot of chemicals. We spray, we'll have like a hydrangeas. You'll notice a little disease. And so what do? You spray a fungicide. Well, that just wipes out your microbes and your fungi, your beneficials. And so no wonder plants are struggling, because they don't have any way to feed themselves or even protect. They have no way of getting any kind of immune benefit from microbes because they're gone. So if you can get that soil biology levels built up, you don't need to spray all these chemicals. So that's kind of the intent.
You confirmed some things that I suspected. The root feeders are still there. Some of the bad guys are still there. But with that biodiversity, there's more competition.
One real quick thing about cover crops is that cover crops, they excrete these exudates, and some are especially good at excreting the right things that soil biology really loves. And I found the cowpeas of all things. It's a legume. It generates its own nitrogen. Cowpeas I found to be very, very effective at stimulating fungal growth. So I would certainly give that a shot.
Okay. Yeah, I'm growing cowpeas, sun hemp. I've got a biodiversity of things that I'm growing. I guess I'm on the right track. I just need to keep going with it and be persistent with it, not let the soil dry out so much.
Yeah. And again, I would, you don't always have to apply soil biology. If you get soil biology, guys, but you want to get just enough, like sugar into your soil where it will, the bacteria will wrap it up and start to reproduce. Then maybe that'll generate some more food for protozoa.
Okay.
And bacterial feeding nematodes. You said that you had that food product that had all that stuff in it, right?
Yeah. But I also had the biggest change that I made when I planted the cover crops last summer, and then again when I planted the fall, winter, and spring crops, is all this insect frass. A friend of mine gifted me a large amount of insect frass. We're talking about 4 or 5 5-gallon buckets. So I've used probably a 5-gallon bucket in all three of my beds, amending it with a fresh compost and maybe a little bit of worm castings, but that was pretty much it. And so insect frass has chitin, and so does crab meal and a lot of the things that are in BioLife by Down to Earth. We'll be back in a minute with Alan's concluding thoughts. And a huge thank you to my friend Virginia Yars, who generously gave me a large amount of insect frass, and that turned out to be a major amendment in what I believe was the biggest factor in this tomato season. What Alan said is that it is a good fungal food, and some people brew it in compost teas. And what I'm about to bring up is not what Alan mentioned, but information that I've come across, and that is that there are two other big reasons why chitin is bad news for root knot nematodes. Number one, chitin, when it's added to the soil, it increases the number of chitin-eating microbes, which produce an enzyme called chitinase. And this enzyme basically terminates the nematode eggs by degrading their shells. And number two, an even more exciting thing is that chitin strengthens the plant's resistance to pathogens, including root-feeding nematodes. Chitin is also in backguano, crab meal, shrimp meal, and my favorite organic fertilizer from Down to Earth, BioLive, has a number of chitin-rich ingredients.
You're on the right track because you're adding some of this food that's got alfalfa meal and humic acid, humic stuff like that. That's all very good microbial food and plant food as well. When you add all that up and then even on top of that, do cover crops, you've done everything you can to promote the biological activity in your soil.
Considering that the biology count was low because of the drought, I'm amazed that the soil still managed to keep the root-feeding nematodes in check to the point where there were no visible galls. It just shows how powerful maintaining a healthy soil food web can be. By nurturing a healthy soil ecosystem, we naturally deter root-feeding nematodes, ensuring plant health. A huge thank you to Alan for helping us understand that. Check out his website at soillife.net or his Jacksonville-based company, Soil Life Organics. Live regeneratively and let's grow together.